Hello, everyone. My name is Ricardo, and I welcome you to Taste Porto Bites and Insights Podcast. Today, we have two very special guests that have joined us. Hello, how do you feel?
I'm really good.
Yeah, doing great. Thank you.
So, Michelle, right,
Yes.
and Jesús,
Yes.
first time in Porto in front of two microphones, three cameras. How do you feel about this?
Feel good.
I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad I showered today.
It really shows in the camera, but not so much in the microphone. But how was it for you picking Porto as a destination?
I think I'll take that question, because I was kind of the mastermind, if you will, of choosing Porto. When we knew that we wanted to live abroad, we first started looking at Europe, and the easy answer for us was Spain, because Jesus speaks Spanish. And we started to do some research into different cities and even selected a few. And then there was this moment in speaking to a friend that we love and trust really well. We're telling her about this idea of moving abroad, and she says, "You know, what you're describing about Spain that you're looking for, you can also find in Portugal, and maybe even a little bit better." And since, she had traveled all around the area, we took her advice, looked into it, and we're like, oh, she was right. So then it was really between Porto and Lisbon for us. And Porto just had the right energy and the right size, public transport. And once we landed, which was the first time here, we were like, yeah, we made the right decision. This is great.
Chronologically, when are you talking about, or when was it that you decided to move?
We told my family in, was that October of 2021? We submitted our application for the visa in like January or February after that, I want to say. And then we received our acceptance in August, and we were here by September 29th of 2022. So now
Okay,
it's been, a little over a year and a half.
very well. And you travel a lot, you would
Mm.
say, no?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
how does Porto influence your traveling choices now?
It's a really easy home base, as you know. It's a good airport, very well connected. And also we've explored, for example, a lot of Spain, and that has been a function of whatever we find on sale, mostly. Like we went to Malaga for
Like,
30 euros
mm-hmm,
for 3-4 days.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then also I think we really enjoy coming back home. This feels like a really good home base in that sense as well. And that we travel, we love exploring, but it's almost like a relief when you get here.
Oh, and you get back home, right?
Mm-hmm.
You already feel at home in Porto?
Yeah, for me as well, because it's almost as if it puts me at ease with my childhood since I grew up in Bolivia.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Portugal has a lot of that spirit, maybe pace of life that I saw in Bolivia. It's a little bit of a time capsule. I feel like the life that you can live here is the life you could have in South America
You
30 years ago.
moved with about 8 years old
I was 8, yeah.
to
Mm-hmm.
the United States, a big country, as a
Mm-hmm.
small child,
Yes.
and now you're moving as an adult to a very small country
Yes.
as a very tall man. What are like your main impressions about this contrast in moving as a young child or
Mhm.
moving as an adult to a different country in a different context?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think when I was a kid, not that I took it for granted, but it was so easy to adjust and learn the language and just get used to things. And then as an adult, I thought I would have just as easy of a time learning the language. But I've had to take lessons and I've had to really put myself at work doing that. Whereas when I was a kid, it just happened. I just showed
Naturally.
up, and 3 months later, I spoke English fluently. And now it's been almost 2 years, and I'm learning Portuguese, but it wasn't as easy. What else I would think? Yeah, and then of course, when I was a child, my mother did a lot of the heavy lifting when it came to figuring out how to do things or not do things, and now it's us. And it's been great, though. It's been a good experience. The people here are very welcoming. Right.
moving as a couple and having to tackle a series of different situations together, how has it been for you both to learn or try to learn Portuguese? You're starting from an awful place because you know Spanish, and that sometimes people would assume is something that would help you, but it's actually the other way around because it
Yes.
confuses a lot
Hmm.
more, right? But how has it been for you both to try and uh, take a grip of the language?
Mm. I'd say I'm in the classic American conundrum, having only learned one language growing up, unfortunately. Um, and the little Spanish I do know is just from having been together since we were pretty young and learning through like watching his family. And I'd say for me, because I really don't know all that much Spanish, it's been more helpful than hurtful. Um, I think as I learn more Portuguese, it will probably start to creep up like you're saying, and I'll get a little bit more confused. But it's helped me quite a bit, especially when I'm reading or sometimes depending on like the accent of the person speaking to me when I'm listening as well. It can be kind of helpful to understand structure or Latin roots and things like that.
But what were like the first simple three words or three phrases you really felt you had to master ASAP or else? Do you recall?
The greetings
Greetings.
and fala inglés.
Yes. Yeah. Desculpa, falo inglês. Yeah.
But people in general, you would say, are very welcoming
Hmm.
in Porto specifically.
Yes.
By the way, why Porto instead of Lisbon?
For one, the weather.
Mm.
Like today we were commenting, it's a beautiful day outside, and we're going to Italy tomorrow, and it's looks like it's going to be a little bit warm.
Yeah.
A little.
Whereas Porto's feels like San Francisco or Seattle in the US. Nice weather all year. What else?
Hmm.
The cost of living,
Yep.
and then also the ease of getting around Porto.
Yes.
So much easier.
Uh,
And we visited
human
Lisbon, and
scale, right?
Hmm.
yeah, Lisbon's like Los Angeles, and Porto feels like, I don't know, a small town in
Yeah.
some ways.
It feels closer to the town that we moved from, which we thought would give us an easier landing. And I think it has. Plus, the benefit of Porto's excellent public transportation. We get along really well without having a car, and we really like it.
Hmm.
You don't think even of owning a car?
Maybe in the next, I don't know, 2 or 3 years,
Yeah,
we
but
might, but
so far it's been great.
mhm.
Um, I think for exploring outside of town, it'll be nice to have a car.
Mm.
You traveled a little bit all throughout Portugal, or you're still like tapping a little bit of the country as you are?
I say both.
Yeah, both.
I'd say both. Yeah, I've been to the Algarve a couple of times. We've been to Madeira
Hmm.
once, um,
Lisbon a few times now.
Lisbon a few times,
Um,
Govia,
Mm-hmm.
Monsanto, a
mhm.
few little towns here and there on the little drive, you know?
And you
Braga.
would say that in
Braga.
such a small country, the people and the attitudes of people in all those different locations you visited, are they different or they're very similar and alike?
I would say for the most part, people are overwhelmingly kind. I do say that. I think in the Algarve and a little bit of Lisbon, you don't quite get the real person because they're there to do a good service. They're trying to provide good service to a lot of different tourists, a lot of foreigners. And so I think they're operating under kind of a limited way of communicating because they want to do a good job and they want to be efficient about it. But I wouldn't say they're any less kind. They're just a little bit more like focused on the task. Whereas in other places, there's a little bit more looseness with the time and you have moments to get to know each other or just chat and, build a relationship.
When you came to Portugal, you had any previous knowledge of the country or its history or the economic way it was, politically how it was, uh, or you took a guess, you took a chance?
We had, I think, a general idea,
Yeah.
but most of what we were looking at was how does this place fit into the lifestyle we want,
Hmm.
more than specifically because it was Portugal, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And so then once we arrived here, it was fascinating learning more of the history and why things are the way they are. The language, for example.
Hmm.
And I've always admired just how Portugal happened to maintain its independence for so long from with all these different forces at play. So it's been really cool because I think it also shows in the character of the people. Like whenever we travel, you can Portuguese are very proud people. So whenever we travel and we hear them, it's great talking to them.
Yeah, it is.
The
Especially they're confused about us. They're like, "What? You live in Portugal?
Yeah.
But you're from where?"
the Portuguese have these this attitude of being like the always the small dog in any situation. So we'll bark very loud to prove that even for a small country, we still have a very long history of being the first at doing all these weird stuff. Like one of the national Guinness World Records is the biggest table on top of a bridge with the biggest amount of tripe stew being served to the biggest amount of people. And this is something we take with immense pride. It
Yes.
was 8 tons and a table that stretched for kilometers. And it's interesting to see
Yes.
how such small characteristics make up for the personality of the people here.
Mhm.
No, you have any like laughable story of interactions with Portuguese people that you remember?
Oh, that's a good one.
I have the one from the stadium from Boa Vista.
Oh, yeah.
We love going to football matches.
Is there any team you started supporting
Yes,
once you're here?
immediately.
Sí, Forza Porto.
Yeah, Porto immediately. The first thing we did was go to the stadium and get our membership. So then we went to Boa Vista against Porto at the Bessa Stadium,
Mhm.
and Boa Vista lost 4-1. And there was this gentleman, Boa Vista supporter. He was very passionate,
Mm.
and he was going around looking at people, and he sees a young guy with a Porto scarf, and he looks at him and he grabs him and he says, fala agora," and we're all like, "What's he gonna
What's
say?"
happening?
Like,
Yeah, it's like you guys just lost.
yeah.
What's he gonna falar?
So it was just like asking him to now
Yeah.
speak, right?
And we're like, "Why? Because you're grabbing him."
Yeah,
So that was pretty random.
it is.
Is there any situation where not knowing the language got you in like a tricky situation?
I think I think we've known it enough, or at least could figure it out enough to kind of get us out of those. I
Well,
can't
even
really
this
think of
weekend,
anything.
like that gentleman that wanted to show us the Blue Lagoon or whatever.
Oh, that's true. I do think we, like growing up where we are a little bit more distrusting and maybe even to the level of suspicious. So, like this weekend, we went up to Valongo
Mm-hmm.
and we went on a beautiful hike there. And at the very end of the hike, there was this older gentleman who kind of appeared out of nowhere to us. And we didn't totally understand what he was saying. Something about a blue lagoon.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, it's just a pier, it's like, that's why people come here is for this lagoon. And we were like, we're not going to follow you over there, though.
Yeah, he wanted us to go with him, and maybe it's from watching too much Law and Order.
It probably is.
But we were like,
You
Yeah.
feel like safety is one of the big reasons you selected Portugal to come over?
mhm,
Yes.
yeah, definitely. But like with that guy, nothing happened.
No, he was,
And we saw him later, and he was like,
yeah.
I know
And
there's a series of water springs over in the Valongo
Mhm.
pathway of the mountain, so maybe it was one
"Yeah, there's
actual.
what was it called?
there was, we did
Blue
go back.
Grotto or something on Google Maps."
Something like Blue Grotto,
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah, it was like a 2-minute walk
Oh.
away. Yeah, it was really beautiful, actually. And we saw him again, and I was like, thank you.
You both have also a lot of hobbies, right? Has Portugal kind of rose up to the expectation of keeping a lot of those hobbies, or is there any new hobby
Hmm.
and pastime you picked up from being here?
Mm.
I think my hobbies, especially running, I've been able to do. And there's a big enough community and also a lot of places you can explore. And the hills are amazing. Like I underestimated how much the hills would keep me in shape. So it's been nice. What about your hobbies, like music, for example?
Yeah. Well, I've been doing a lot of reading first and foremost, which is really fun. Um, I think having a different perspective of time living in Portugal versus like being American. History is very short. And so living in a place where history is much longer kind of opened up the things that I want to read and want to learn about. And that's been really fascinating, actually. Um, whether it's about like places Portugal has touched, like Sri Lanka, or I don't know, random memoirs of, people in history. Like, I think it's definitely influenced my hobbies. What else?
Is there any Portuguese novelists you started up reading?
No, but I'm also not very good at remembering names of that kind of stuff. So it very well could be. But yeah, I'm not sure.
Telling apart sometimes the different places in town you can go for different pastimes.
Mhm.
It's sometimes hard because even in a small city like Porto, you have so many things that you can do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always curious about people that move here and get surprised by the beach, the ocean front, and how close it is to the center of the city. Do you already have a beach you go to as one of your personal favorites?
Mm-hmm. There's several. I'm trying to remember specifically what it's called because it's where Lapa Lapa is. Is it by the Lapa? It's not Lapa, right?
Lapa Lapa. I'm
It's the
trying to.
restaurant there.
Is that the one that's south?
Let me look it up actually.
Well, if it's for just a regular beach day and it's out of beach season, so there's no cabanas, no bathrooms, no
Uh-huh.
nothing, usually we'll go to Ingleses.
Ingleses, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so right in Porto, right near the mouth
Mhm.
of the river.
Yes.
But then when it's like beach season and all that, there's
Mhm.
that area with all the restaurants.
Moya.
Mole.
Is that how
Mole.
you say it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
And that's where all the Porto sign is right now.
Yeah,
I think that's the beach. Yeah. That's
I
it.
like that one.
Yeah.
The man with the rudder, or a little bit further up. Is that it?
Yeah, right around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's my beach as well.
Yes.
Because it's
Okay.
nice to go to the water. It's
Yes, and
peaceful.
it's peaceful.
You have a
It's
lot of the
easy.
local people as well.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is there any restaurant near the ocean front that you particularly are a fan of?
Ibar.
The Ibar's
You
nice.
at? Okay.
Mhm.
And then also there's that one that's like, what's the name of it? When we go to Ingleses, it's like one block in. It's like locals only.
Oh, we looked it up once and I don't remember. It's just like it's a perfect like Portuguese lunch spot where, they have like the 5 things of the day and you just
Mhm.
choose and they're like,
Especially because like when you're at the beach, right? You eat at the on the beach and it's 20 euros, let's say. And
It's
then you
very
go one
inexpensive.
block.
Yeah.
And this place is 8 euros
Mhm.
for the Prato del Dia, so it's even better.
yeah.
Is it one that has like this huge terrace overlooking the water, just
No.
opposite to the beach?
No, it's kind of a hole in the wall. It's not a sexy restaurant, but
No,
it's
no.
fantastic.
So
It's
I
right
love
on.
the fact that you're already very local at it because you're already like, oh, how's the name of it?
We just go there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Mhm.
You feel like people here take life a little bit easier, less stressful,
Mhm.
and you've kind of been, how can I say, impregnated by it. You
Yes.
also have that baby in you of not giving a lot of ideas about what I'm gonna do next, or let's go with the flow.
Yeah,
You're like
literally.
that already?
I
Yeah.
think so. It's been amazing.
Mhm.
I noticed, especially when we go back to the US.
Mhm.
I call it my Portugal speed. I'm just walking, just taking my time.
Yeah. No
Just like,
expectations
okay.
about
Yeah.
when things are going to happen or
And then I noticed, especially with our American friends,
Mhm.
just the impatience. Everything has to happen yesterday.
Yeah.
And even like when we were walking here right now, it's like, cool, just walking down. We'll get there when we get there. Like,
I know that you're pretty much now involved with sports activities and you're relaxing, but also Michelle, I know that in your past experience you had a lot of work involved with or on a branch or a side of life that's very important that is self-improvement.
Mhm.
How has it been coming over to Portugal and trying to absorb what the country has to offer for a person to get better at his state of mind, to acquire a certain peace of mind, stability? You feel that Portugal has somewhat influenced you, acquiring that even more or searching it further even?
Very much so. Yeah, and I'm glad you ask because it's been very important to me to continue to improve myself and also offer any help I can to others to do that as well. And it has been fascinating being in this setting and the opportunities that has allowed me to grow internally, to heal different things, to unlearn and replace things with better mindsets or mentalities. I think that the slower pace of life, like we've just been talking about, is a big part of it. It really allows you to just slow down your everyday and think about how you can use each 10 minutes, even, whether it's to grab a coffee with a friend or just sit. And the values that are apparent here that are more in line with the way that we want to live our life, they resonate with each other,
Hmm.
you know? And so it really allows an internal growth, and it will become, I think, a very important part of like my lifelong story of having this ability, this space to do that kind of work in.
Do you think that Portuguese take a lot of attention on wellness and inner growth?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whether they do, but what I see is that the attention that the Portuguese give to community and to being connected to one another, that's a big takeaway for me personally.
Mhm. And in regards to sports, you feel like we work out enough?
Definitely. Especially for me, it's always these weird times that, well, for me, they're weird, but it makes sense when I talk to people why they happen when they happen. For example, trying to play football at 10 p.m., but that's like when people do it.
Mm.
Yeah.
Or one, for example, I was looking at the Porto um, football for old people, and I thought maybe I can join that, but it's like at 10 p.m. So I thought that's a little too late. I need to be home and watching TV by then.
Have you already made friends with any community in Porto that you can have this kind of bigger group where you belong to?
I think so. This, for example, I belong to a soccer football community,
Hmm.
and it's pretty hilarious, honestly, because of the diversity of the guys and their opinions. Running as well, although I haven't done too much with the running community here. And then there's my new favorite sport of paddle.
Mm.
Yes.
You would say that every activity that you do in a group here leads to going out for dinner, or at least out for a coffee or a drink?
I don't know. Maybe
I think so.
not every,
Not every,
but
but
it can. I
mhm.
think yes.
Yeah, I see that. If anything, we're probably the more homebody type people. And
Hmm.
so if there's that one group or that one couple that always goes home instead of going out, that's probably us.
Yeah. I mean, it's easy. That's why I'm saying it can. Should it? Yes. Will it? Maybe.
You cook a lot in the house?
Yeah.
Is there any Portuguese specialty that you already have, like,
Oh,
became a pro doing?
I wouldn't claim to be an expert at the amazing cooking that goes on here. I'd say we try to every once in a while throw in some fish, a lot more often than we did before. We try to cook fish. And honestly, if ever we're really craving Portuguese food, we live right by the
So
most
easy.
incredible churrascaria.
Uh-huh.
And so we just go there.
Paraíso?
Right.
Yes,
100%.
exactly.
Very well.
So good.
Yeah.
Their puri chicken is quite
So
awesome.
good.
Oh, it's
It is.
incredible.
And it's walking distance.
Uh-huh.
Remember when I ordered it on Uber Eats?
It's like literally 30 steps from our apartment.
Yeah. And then one time I don't know what came on me. I ordered an Uber Eats and I was watching the guy and he was so confused.
Like,
He's
how can
like,
it be so
You
close?
went to the restaurant. Oh, here.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
We should have just had a bucket
to
to
pull.
pull it
Yeah, we
up
should.
out through the window.
So, and I'm like, oh yeah, what do you do for fun? I go exercise. And I order Uber Eats from the restaurant across
And
the street.
in terms of going around town and having different habits, obviously you have a lot of interests and hobbies. It's more than noticeable, but you still travel a lot. You were just saying that whenever you go back to the United States, you go back to your Portuguese timing,
Hmm.
and it's quite present. In such a small amount of time, are there any things that you picked up here that once you go over to the United States and you interact with people that have for sure known you since your whole lives, that they notice that, oh, that's way different. How did you picked up on that behavior? And you have to mention that, oh, a lot of time in the coffee with Portuguese people shouting, and well, this is where I got. Was that it?
I noticed when we were in the US in May that people told you like you had this like inner peace about you.
Hmm.
So I think like for you embracing just I don't know that acceptance of life in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. I tend to be a quite organized person, which is something that I really like about myself. But whenever there's also like an anxiety around that, that can get kind of intense, right? And so I think our friends were seeing within me that like I'm still who I am, but I don't have that anxiety around the particularity of things, that I'm okay with like lessening the plan, a little bit more loose, a little bit more relaxed.
You moved into Portugal pretty much after the pandemic. Did that make a huge, was it very important for you to move to a different location at that time, or it had nothing to do with it? Is unrelated.
I think that if the pandemic hadn't happened, we probably wouldn't have moved here.
Mhm.
We had, during those first few months, a lot of time together, obviously. And we had a lot of conversations about what it is we wanted our life to look like. And it was one of those random conversations that kind of turned into a dream or a fantasy that kind of turned into a plan that turned into us coming here. And I do think that seeing how Portugal handled the pandemic was an influence as well, because we take it quite seriously. And we struggled to find that how do I describe? There were other people in our community that also took it very seriously, but not everyone.
Mhm.
And so we kind of struggled to get along in that sense on a community wide level. And so, yeah, coming here, it was a bit of a relief to see that it was handled a lot more smoothly.
It's always a restart when you move, right?
Mm,
And you're picking up from nothing because basically you moved here pretty much alone, right? As a couple, but alone. You had previous people you knew here? No.
nope,
Not in Porto, no.
nope.
So it was a blank sheet of paper that you could fill up with whatever you
Hmm.
wanted. The would you say that having such a welcoming community like the one that traditionally we have over in Portugal helped you finding that calm place?
I think so, especially and also the expats we've met, American or otherwise, they're also drawn to Porto, especially for similar reasons. So even meeting those folks, I think, has been rewarding because we're aligned in ways that maybe we
You
weren't
wouldn't
in the
be back
US.
home, right?
Yes, literally.
Mm.
Yes.
That's I would say probably the biggest difference, not so much the landscape or the history, it's really the people, right?
Hmm.
You feel that Portuguese people are too polarized as a society, or it's kind of something that you don't even want to try and get into because it brings up bad memories of back home.
I would say if the Portuguese are polarized, I don't have the perspective to see it coming from a place that is very polarized.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think the contrast. And also for me, it's interesting because in Bolivia, there's also the racial element that I don't feel here as much. At least not when I'm walking around the street. I feel comfortable. But in other places, you do feel the discomfort. So,
If you're in Portugal and you already have also Portuguese friends around, no? You have a lot of people of Portugal that you've met up throughout your over a year being here, which is a small time still. But
mhm.
do you feel that Portuguese people have no issue whatsoever about talking about any different topic? Don't you feel like we're a little bit loud mouths that we get ourselves into situations and conversations that traditionally in other places would get people into trouble, but here it seems like, oh, another glass and everything's fine.
I think we do appreciate that conversations here can have disagreements between the people, but it doesn't seem that people take it like so personally.
Hmm.
Yes.
We can, like you said, we'll be friends after this conversation, regardless of how far apart our opinions are that what we're talking about.
Yeah, definitely. Especially because I've noticed that we get a little uptight. Like
Mm,
we hear people start talking about something. It's like,
yeah.
Should I intervene in this
yeah,
conversation? Should I? You
especially
feel that here?
No, I think the Portuguese people are totally fine. It's us that is more of the issue.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit sensitive.
You know, like for example, we were at a dinner once and someone starts talking about taxes. And I didn't want to have an opinion one way or another, but I heard someone say almost like, "Oh, why do we have to pay taxes?" And someone else says, "Well, I like to pay taxes because it's the things we have." And in the US, that conversation could have gone south very
Very
rapidly.
fast.
Yes.
But in this interaction, it's like, "Oh, okay, we'll see you later. Let me know next time you're in Porto.
Mhm.
Ciao."
Yeah.
Also in Porto, there's this particularity of people here, the way they tend to show their love and in some circumstances, especially if you have friends that you haven't seen for a long time, it's to talk trash about that person's mother. And then the person, oh, he really likes me.
Oh my
It's like
God.
this huge sense of uh, friendship being transposed in a non very literal way.
Yeah.
Like you basically curse your friends whenever they're like 3 weeks without calling, but that really shows off that you really are into
Mhm.
that person and
Mm.
you miss that person. Is it hard to adjust to that reality here of having
I
to
love it.
understand cursing and that tough love is in fact the kindest of
Mhm.
loves?
Um, for me, if I use my Bolivian brain, no. But if I use my American sensibilities, yes, a little bit more. But especially I think the Spanish that my family speaks or the my family culture does involve, at least with my grandmother when she was alive, a lot of that tough love sometimes. So if anything, that makes me feel kind of at home. But I think, especially if I think if I hear it in Portuguese, I'll say this: if I hear it in Portuguese, it makes sense, but it doesn't translate well
Mm-mm.
into
Uh,
another language. So then, if you try to translate it, then it loses the meaning too.
you also, and especially you, Michelle, you work with self-improvement and uh mental wellness is a big thing nowadays. Everybody seems to have awakened to the fact that uh social instability, economic instability leads to mental, emotional instability.
Mm.
Do you feel that here we have a different way of tackling those subjects and even treating people in that way? Or
I think so. I have a very limited experience with certainly any like professional settings with that here yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a healthy emphasis on those things, really, because this is maybe a poor connection, but in the US, if I had to take an antibiotic, it would just be that. They would prescribe me an antibiotic and they'd be like, let me know if it doesn't work. Here, I had to take antibiotics, and my doctor was like, it's very important that you also take these probiotics. Here's how to take them together so that they work well. Right. And I was just so struck by that. I was like, wow, she took the extra moment to explain something to me to make sure that my whole body was going to recover well. And so, using that as, kind of a basis experience, I would probably assume that it does really along the same lines, right? It does the system carries through with that care to mental wellness.
Mhm. And in terms of professional activities, I know that you are basically here to relax and unwind at the most part, but you're still linked to some professional activity, um, either by studying or by trying to achieve a better version of yourselves. How do you feel that in Portugal you have better conditions to go at it than back in the US?
Well, we're in a very privileged position to not have active work right now. And so I think that special time that we've given ourselves is the opportunity to reflect and to grow and to challenge ourselves in those ways. Um, yeah, that's how I think about it. What about you?
Yeah, I was also thinking that I feel like because we're not in an environment that's completely US centric, we can also detach ourselves from some of that um, value, I guess, that you put behind your work. Because, like, even when we visit the US, like, we notice that a lot of people's self worth or the way they even describe themselves, it revolves around their work. So it's nice to exist in an environment where I can be myself without the label of what's your job title and how much money do you make and all that.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's a complete no subject here, right?
Yeah.
This thing of
Seriously though.
the
Yeah.
money talk,
Yeah.
it's not a big subject here. It's more about the experiences
Mhm.
and what are you doing this week?
Mhm.
It's more of a how do you say, a close
Mhm.
goal oriented kind of life, right? It's like, how's your week going? It's not like, what do you have prepared for this year and the next semester? What?
Yes.
So
What are your
that's
goals?
Yeah.
a laid back, chill
Mhm.
way of living. But if you would have to give advices or even some tips to people coming over as a couple, what would be like the main advices you would give to a couple deciding to move over?
Mm. I think entering the experience with like very little expectation is really helpful. Um, you're just going to work yourself up if you build up this vision of what's going to happen. And then if anything deviates from that, it's just a source of unnecessary stress. So I think set your expectations accordingly. And also for us, something that really helped before we got here, we started working on that change in speed or in time or in pace of life. We started thinking about what will it look like to slow our life down? How will that feel? How do we work specifically on our relationship with productivity? Because we were conditioned our entire lives that the more productive you are, the more self-worth you should have, and vice versa. If you're not productive, then you are a drain. And so coming into a life where we knew we weren't going to be actively working for a time, we thought that's going to be a disaster if we don't kind of work on that mindset. So I not everyone will come to Portugal in the same process as we are or have the same situation, but I think um regardless, those couple of things would really help the transition.
Yeah, I think patience,
Mm,
just like grace, right? Treating things, like you said, with not low expectation, but a realistic expectation.
yeah.
But for me, I think the biggest thing that I tell everyone is give yourself at least 2 years, because the first year you're adjusting. And
You're
then,
acclimating.
yes. And then the second year you're finally enjoying things, I feel.
Is there any Porto habit or tradition that really gets you like, oh, they have to stop doing this?
Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of fireworks
Fireworks in your motorcycle.
and motors. Yeah, we live on a really noisy street, so the motorcycles do get me. But every once in a while, we'll be going to sleep, and I'm like, "What is that noise?" And it's almost always fireworks
Fireworks.
for whatever occasion, and I'm just like, "There's so many."
Yeah, the
How
fireworks.
many St. John celebrations have you lived through in
Two,
Porto? Two
Two.
already,
two
right?
glorious festas.
How
Yeah.
was it for you coming
It's
from abroad into the craziest celebration the country has?
the
And
best night of the year.
at what time did you go back home on those two last times?
Yeah.
Do you recall?
Mhm.
So it is glorious. I try to tell anybody who will listen to me,
Anyone who'll
like,
visit.
visit during Saint Juan because it's a highlight of my life.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Do you want to put into context to people so that they understand what São João is in
Sure.
expat coming
Expat
over
trips.
here? Yeah.
Yeah. It is like the biggest citywide celebration I've ever seen or participated in. It is just so full of positive energy and fun things, and you're just making your own memories, and all around you're surrounded by people making their memories, and there's just all these little moments of joy. Like, so the last couple of years, what we've done is met up with a group of friends at, and I'm going to plug a Fábrica da Picaria.
Uh-huh.
We went there on our food tour actually with Andre, and he showed us the bifanas, which in my opinion are the
Best be
best in
fun.
town.
Best be fun.
So both
So.
of our San Juan, we met up there with friends for the bifanas.
Mhm.
And then we went down toward the river and we're setting off the Chinese lanterns as we go and just kind of wandering and having an incredible time and seeing all the other lanterns and of course giving the head bonks with the hammers and receiving lots and two and we watched the fireworks down at the river and then we walk generally toward the ocean. And this year we made it. We walked.
You arrived to
Yeah,
Praia dos Ingleses? Is
Yes,
that it?
yes,
we did.
we did.
Yeah.
But we were too early.
We were too early. We tried to time it to get there at sunrise.
But we got there at 4,
4,
and
which
then
is
2
about,
more hours till sunrise.
yeah. The first year as well, we were, I think, in the plaza
We're at
by our house by like 4:45.
4:45 at Plaza de la República.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so both years we've made it, but then we've gone home, what, by 5:30?
By 5, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so is there any possibility for a baby boom in the next 9 months? No,
Oh,
After South João.
after
Yeah,
South
yeah.
João.
I read
because
that.
that's the tradition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So if you went to the ocean, you're now protected for the next 5 years. You
Yes.
know this?
I didn't.
No disease whatsoever.
Okay, very nice.
And
Okay.
if you sent a lantern, your wish is for sure arriving to its destination. And tradition says that still till today, and this is the biggest celebration in Porto, it has been the celebration even during the dictatorship where people could go out in the street.
Mm.
So it's a synonym of liberty as well.
Hmm.
And traditionally, yeah, you would have a baby boom about 9 months
9
afterwards
months.
because people would
Okay.
go off to the beach and there were no adult supervision, and well, things would happen, I would say.
Yes.
But in regards to your life experience here, it seems like you're just acclimating and you feel quite comfortable. No, you would say
Mhm.
that,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
for
you
sure.
already have favorite spots for bifanas, which
Mm-hmm.
is
Oh my gosh, so
not
good.
saying little
Yeah.
about what the city has to offer. But if I had like a series of small questions, would you be able to give me a fast, straightforward answer to the
I think
questions, you
so.
think?
Oh my gosh.
Rapid fire. Let's
Rapid
do it.
Yeah.
fire.
So, what dish or dessert is your favorite in Porto?
Francesinha.
Jesus, yeah, and
Pastel de nata.
pastel de nata, very well. And what would be your favorite coffee house to hang around?
Oh man.
And remember, this is a fast burst.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry.
It's like,
I don't think I have a favorite.
So
name
we
one.
now know one that we'll have to pick up for the next time we
Yes.
interview
Yes,
each
I'm
other.
like,
You're right.
name one, right? It's just random.
A hobby you just simply cannot live without.
Running.
Reading.
And the best thing about living in Porto,
Everything.
The weather.
Mm.
The summer weather. Because the November weather is a different story.
and in Portugal overall, what's the best thing about it?
That's a good question.
The
I don't know.
people.
The people, yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. Yes.
I feel as though we run through a lot of different topics, but there's always this impression that I get, especially when talking to people that are so well off being themselves and trying not to pressure themselves into the next step, which is sometimes the the vicious circle. People get themselves entangled and they move to a different country to find a little bit more peace and tranquility, and all of a sudden they got pushed into the
Hmm.
very fast-paced life we have nowadays. If you were able to describe a day in your life here in Porto, how would it be? Like the perfect day in Porto, how would it start? Where would you go for lunch? How would you finish the afternoon? What would you do at night?
Oh, I
I
like
love I love how very subtle you were with you Michelle. You give the answer.
that. Okay, if I had to build the perfect day in Porto, all right, I would probably start off with breakfast at Lazy Breakfast Club
Hmm.
and then walk around. I love that whole area. There's some vintage clothing shops, there's some art galleries. You can explore up and down Serofaita. There's tons of fun things to see there. Then for lunch, maybe bifanas at a fábrica. And then let me see. From there, I think go down. You gotta see the river, obviously. You gotta cross the bridge. And where would you put us for dinner, you think?
A furada.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Afurada.
Some nice fish.
Yes. We in particular love Casa Moraida
Yeah.
in Afurada. And they're so nice. Their stuff is always so fresh. It's the perfect place to see a sunset. And then maybe like I don't know, maybe do like a sunset sailboat or something. Get on the water a little.
Yeah. I was gonna say for me, I would start with a nice run in the morning.
Mm.
Maybe go up river. Starting over here at the bridge in Gaia, and then just go up the Douro.
Hmm.
So nice. And then I like the lunch over at South George.
Yeah.
And then yeah, definitely craft beers in the afternoon. We go to Colossus first.
Mm.
At Dungeon Quartz, right next to one of the oldest barber stores in town.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
neat.
awesome. And then yeah, go to Furada. Furada's the place to go.
It is.
Yeah. That's a good question.
I feel
Perfect
that
Porto bit.
you're perfectly acclimated. You have plenty of what to do, of where to go, and surely you know what you're doing. So to me, I don't know if you have, and in correspondence to this change of ideas, if you have any question to do to me.
Mm.
Any
I
questions?
didn't think I had that
Mhm.
far.
Me neither. What's the goal behind the podcast? Is it to feature like what? What's the
I think
idea?
the biggest goal is really to find different people that encountered in Porto kind of a safety net that accommodated them to being the best at themselves and excelling themselves. I would say that is the
Mhm.
big motto behind all of this. It's trying to get to know people that decided that this was the place, either because they decided or because they were like me, just born here,
Mm.
lucky,
Yeah.
lucky
Lucky.
bastards as
Yeah.
we are. It was definitely a pleasure having you here, both of you, but you won't go away without receiving a gift from us. And this is just a small token of our appreciation for you taking a little bit out of your life and coming over here and sharing your personal experiences. It's more of a souvenir, actually, and it's also a reminder of how important it is to go, but always keep in mind that you have to come
Oh,
back.
I
So
love it.
these are just
Oh,
two small swallows. They represent you both, and I hope you
Obrigado.
get a few more ones representing your family. Also, because
cute.
the swallows are usually a symbol of spring and the opportunities that spring brings. So I really, really enjoyed this small moment with you, and I hope you come back again, like the
Thank you.
swallows. Yeah.
Obrigado.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Obrigada.
much. It was a pleasure. Jesus, see you next
See you
time.
next
And
time.
Michelle, thank you so much. Um, as for the rest of you, we'll see each other in another episode. Thank you so much. My name is Ricardo, and see you later.